Good morning and welcome to the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor. Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Senator Daly. Here. Senator Ellison. Senator Flores.
Present.
Senator Lang. Senator Rogich. Here. Senator Scheibel. Senator Steinbeck. Here. Chair Pazina.
Present. Thank you so much. Please mark Senator Scheibel present when she arrives, and please mark Senators Lang and Ellison absent excused. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. For our members in Carson City, as well as anyone who may be joining us today in Las Vegas, as well as those following along on our meeting online. Before we begin, I'd like to make just a few housekeeping announcements. First, I'd like to remind everyone to please silence all of your electronic devices while in the committee room. Members of the public may provide testimony in various ways, all of which are listed on the agenda. You may also submit public comment in writing, either in addition to testifying or in the place of. And if you wish to testify in person, please sign in at the table by the door and provide the committee secretary with your business card. When testifying in person, please turn the microphones on to speak and off to listen, as we have others listening in, potentially in Vegas. Yep, we do have a few in Vegas, as well as those that are following along online. Please also state and spell your name for the record. Anyone who'd like to receive electronic notifications of scheduled bills and access to the committee's meeting materials may do so by signing up on Nellis on the legislative website. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other exhibits. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or of inattention. Before we begin as well, I'd like to point out that we do have 4 bills on the agenda today, so it will be a very busy day, as we do have floor today as well, and we'd like to get as much testimony in as possible. We do ask that everyone keep their comments to 2 minutes when they're testifying in support, opposition, or neutral, and we will be limiting testimony and support to 20 minutes, opposition 20 minutes, neutral 20 minutes on each bill today. And that's just so we can get in as much testimony as possible, but still allow us to make it to the floor this morning. And with that, we're going to move to the very first item on the agenda today, and we're going to welcome the Assembly Majority Leader, Assembly Member Howdegi, to discuss Assembly Bill 280, revising provisions related to housing.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and thank you so much for accommodating Assembly Bill 280 first. My co-presenter has 2 places to be at one time, and so we appreciate it, Chair. Thank you. I'm Sandra Howdegi, and I'm here today to present Assembly Bill 280. Housing affordability has become one of the most pressing issues in our state. This is particularly true for seniors. Many seniors live on fixed incomes derived from sources such as Social Security benefits, pensions, or retirement savings. These income streams often do not keep pace with the rising cost of living, particularly escalating housing expenses. Many rely on Social Security, pensions, and savings that do not adjust to keep pace with soaring rental prices. A single unexpected rent hike can mean the difference between staying in a home or facing eviction. Assembly Bill 280 can protect seniors from sudden and unaffordable rent hikes, ensuring they can allocate their limited resources to other essential needs, like healthcare and nutrition. Studies have shown that unaffordable rent burdens force older adults to cut back on healthcare, food, or other basic necessities, negatively affecting their overall health. Nevada is home to thousands of seniors who have worked their entire lives to contribute to our communities. Assembly Bill 280 is a crucial pilot program, one that seeks to provide stability, dignity, and security to Nevada's senior citizens. This bill allows us to assess the program's effectiveness in ensuring affordability without long-term commitments and while balancing industry concerns. Reasonable policies like this pilot program can coexist with a healthy rental market while protecting the most vulnerable members of our community. Additionally, this program is temporary. If challenges arise, as the opposition suggests, we can adjust or reconsider it. The key is that we take action now rather than allowing seniors to continue suffering, face eviction, or end up homeless. Chair, I would now like to turn it over to my co-presenter to make a few remarks on other components of the bill, and then I will walk the committee through the bill.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jonathan Norman, Norman, with the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. Thank you so much for hearing this bill today. I think we can all agree that consumers deserve to know how much money they're obligating themselves to pay when they are agreeing to rent an apartment or house. We see tenants every day, and we have landlord-tenant practices in the north and the south and in the rurals. who rent an apartment for, say, $1,500 per month, which they budget for, only to discover the rest of the story, as fee after fee are sprinkled throughout the lease, and it balloons their monthly costs. We see any number of fees, air filter fees, smoke detector, battery change fees, valet trash fees, vague amenity fees, television remote, like the remote control for a television in furnished apartments, $10 a month fee. Cable and internet packages that are mandatory and can cost over $100 a month. A fee for paying rent through an online portal, so you have to pay rent. And then application fees, fees for background checks for every potential person living in the unit, including minor children. There are two ways we see consumers impacted by fees. I would just lump them into bogus fees and deceptive fees. A bogus fee would be a fee for something a landlord is already obligated to provide or shouldn't be charging for. Examples would be if a landlord collects 10 application fees from 10 prospective tenants and runs the first background and approves that tenant, rents them the unit and never runs the other 9 prospective tenants' backgrounds but keeps the application fees. Or frankly, running application fees for minors who would be living in the unit should not be needed or necessary, and I just think that's a bogus fee that's used to generate income. A deceptive fee is when a landlord spreads the fees out throughout the lease. A fee on page 1, a fee on page 10, a fee on page 45, a fee on page 62, a fee on addendum 1, and so on. Why this is deceptive is landlords are progressively growing their leases year over year. If any of you rented an apartment here in Carson City, I would not be surprised that you got a lease that was over 50 pages. Both the lengths of these leases and not disclosing in one sheet the very essence of the bargain, the amount of money that will be paid each month, is deceptive. An example, internal documents from Invitation Homes, which owns over 3,000 single-family homes in Clark County alone, talks about this practice like it is a strategy, using the term, "we need to juice this hog," in reference to growing fees. They are talking about bilking everyday Nevadans, and they were sued by the Federal Trade Commission and settled the case for $48 million. According to the FTC complaint, just one of their fees, called a Lease Easy fee alone, generated $60 million for Invitation Homes between 2021 and 2023. We believe in fairness, and businesses should be prohibited from fleecing Nevadans with bogus or hidden fees. Fair is fair. I thank you again for hearing this bill, and then I think the floor leader is gonna walk through the bill.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. Section 1 of the bill deals with returning any fees to applicants who applied for a unit but were never screened. Section 2 adds 2 appendixes to the end of a lease. One outlining all fees that can be charged, and the second with a Know Your Rights section. Section 3 creates the pilot rent stabilization program for seniors and those on disability with a cap of 5%. And that is the extent of the bill. Chair, with your permission, we're open to questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation this morning. And do we have any questions from the committee? Senator Ellison.
Yes, ma'am. Not everybody charges fees ever. And in the rules, that barely ever happens unless you go into apartment complexes. But I have some really, really good friends that lost everything during COVID in their rental units. Everything. They lost their homes, they lost their cars, they lost everything. Because they could not collect rent, but yet they were still receiving a salary, and they were still working, and they were getting government subsidies, and they didn't have to pay rent. So we're picking one industry on all these bills against people because they own rentals. And these older Spanish people, they lost everything. Then you get the renters in there that tear these places to pieces, and what do? They have nothing to fall back on. You can't sue them. Yeah. So there's got to be some kind of happy medium. I don't think anybody should be adding charges on. We don't. So these fees that you see that people are I didn't even know apartment houses had remotes. They would put TVs and remotes in them. That's ridiculous. So there's a lot of stuff in here that I'm worried about. The other bills is really the ones that we're worried about, but we've got to make it fair. You're an attorney. If you have changes in there, do you charge that extra fees onto them? Yes. If you're a store and the prices go up, what do? You charge them. You go to a gas station, look at these gas pumps. So you're picking one industry to go after. Public housing, not everybody's into any kind of public housing. It's the bigger units. So I just tell you, I hope we can get together and talk and try to look at some of these bills. But some of these people lost everything they owned because of these bills that are coming out. And I'm worried about it. I'm worried about these are old people. These are old seniors, and probably the best landlords you ever meet in your life. And they're worried about these bills. So I just putting that on the record because there's two sides to every story, and this isn't it. But these ones that are charging fees, I agree with you. I mean, we have rentals, and my rentals are probably the lowest in the state of Nevada. Why? Because not everybody works at the mines. Not everybody, they work in the stores, they work in the casinos, they work in the gas station. That's the people we want. And we take good care of our properties. We take good care of the people that we know that is losing everything they own. We're trying to help them in every way we can, but they lost everything. Everything. And they're in their high 80s. What do they do now? They're done. So I want to make sure that not everybody's bad people. It's usually large complexes and these outfits that do the rents for them. But we're talking the little guys that are being impacted.
This is Jonathan Norman. Senator, I appreciate I felt the question in there, and then I appreciate the comments. You know, during the pandemic, I think there was a lot of loss for many people, whether it was property or loved ones passing away, and you know that's a tragic chapter in our country's history. I do think I want to point out that this bill doesn't say you can't charge fees. It merely says you have to disclose it when the tenant is coming in and filling out the lease. So in one document, you need to list all the fees you're going to charge, except fees that are allowed by statute. An example of that would be a landlord is always free to charge 5% late fee if you pay your rent late, right? That's in statute. But landlords need to just disclose. We're not saying you can't charge even that television remote fee, which I think is absurd. We're not even saying you can't charge that. We're just saying you need to disclose to the tenant in one sheet of paper everything they're going to be charged for and not sprinkle it throughout a lease and try to hide it. And I am convinced that, you know, most landlords, like your friends or you, aren't engaging in that kind of deceptive practice. So this portion of the bill won't impact how you conduct yourself as a landlord, or frankly, how any good landlord conducts himself. It will target those people like Invitation Homes, which is they own 87,000 homes across the country, and they intentionally talk in their corporate emails about deception to trick consumers and to fleece them for more money, and that's what this bill does. And to be frank, they can charge all those absurd fees. They just got to be upfront and honest about it.
My problem's not the big guys. I honestly believe that. But the older, smaller people, their leases are probably half this page. And I don't know of any of them. I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know any of them charges late fees. I've been in business for 40 years. Never once have I ever charged a late fee, ever, on commercial and residential. But I don't worry about me. I can take care of myself. But these older people are scared to death that any more bills are going to come out, because what they're going to do is they're going to put everything up for sale. They're going to give them a 30-day notice, and that's when the problem's going to start. Is because then at that point in time, they're going to be on the street. They can't take anymore. This one industry has been impacted so bad, and I'm not talking about the big guys you're going after. I support that. I'm worried about the little people. That's the ones I'm worried about. They're losing everything. And every day there's another something out there to go after. And I had some people call me last night in panic talking about commercial, that's another bill coming up, commercial versus residential, that is going to be an impact. That is a taking. And so we'll get to that case when it gets here, but I'm just telling you, I'm worried about the old people that has rentals that are losing everything they got. And they're not the bad guys, but these throw fear out there in the hearts of them, and that's what's going on. And that's a statement. It's because the fear is so bad out there right now. I help these guys every way I can. And seniors that are out there, we don't charge for our electrical work. We try to donate everything we can to these older people because they can't afford it. So, but I just wanted to get my statements on. I'm really worried about what's going on in the next bill that's coming up. That one there is, it could impact them. They'll shut them down. And that's what they're looking at. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ellison. And, ironically, it sounds like you have some common ground here, because I don't think either of you are looking to charge seniors for services that they haven't been made aware of. So I think there is some common ground here, which is always a positive.
I just want to see if we can get a dialogue to make sure, because when you say rules, not the big people. So thank you. And I thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you so much. Senator Steinbeck.
Thank you both for presenting today. My question's in section 3. Can you just go over that a little bit? And also, I wasn't sure as to why it wasn't indicated as a change in the bill, as far as it wasn't outlined in blue. It's just plain. I was kind of curious about that too.
Oh, Senator, session law doesn't get outlined in blue because it doesn't change our Nevada revised statute. So session law just gets printed in black because it's not changing our statutes. And I'll ping your counsel to confirm that.
Yeah, Jeff Coulomé from the Legal Division. Thank you. Section 3 is what we typically refer to internally as a transitory provision. And generally, the duration of this program lasts less than 2 years, lasts less than one biennium, and we'll usually put that in a transitory provision because it's a temporary thing, so we don't need to codify it into the NRS because it would have to be then removed later. So it goes into the statutes of Nevada, the session laws, and it will be there, and it'll be on the books. It just doesn't go into the codified portion of the NRS because it's a temporary program, if that's helpful.
Thank you for the freshman lesson.
And Assemblymember Sandra Howdigi, for the record, just to go into detail because you asked about Section 3. Section 3 is what creates the pilot rent stabilization program, which is an 18-month program, so it's less than a biennium. I wanted to put protections in there because what I wanted to do was create a pilot program to make sure the program would work. And if it didn't, right, then the program would automatically cease to exist before the next legislative session. What I also don't want to happen is for senior leases to not be renewed and then us see a negative impact to seniors and not be able to do anything about it before session. So I did have a hard end date on that. But I also knew that we had to do something because after last interim, when I toured the City of Las Vegas corridor of Hope in downtown, one of the things that was brought to our attention is that the population of people that was growing there were seniors because they had incomes coming in, but they were fixed incomes and they couldn't keep up with the cost of their rents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Senator Rogich.
Good morning. Very quick question. Why 62 years of age? So, for instance, I'm about to be 62 in 2 years, so I would qualify under the conditions of the language that you're using in the statute here. And so, or I should say the bill. So why 62? Because I don't feel as if I'm a senior, and so.
Assemblymember Sandra Howdigi, nor do you look like one, Senator, but it was the agreed upon age. There was a consortium of stakeholders who worked on this bill for 18 months after the 2021 legislative session. This bill is a duplicate of the bill we brought in 2023 with some slight changes. We took out the real property transfer tax because it was going to be a huge fiscal impact to the state, but that was what was agreed upon between the various stakeholders who worked. Legal aid, the realtors were at the table, Nevada Mortgage Lending, some of our other partners. So there was many partners at the table, and that was the number that we all came to a consensus on.
And I'm going to hand it over to Senator Daley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just for the record, or maybe by way of explanation, you're tying it to Social Security as well. I believe 62 is the earliest you can take Social Security. So that those two match up, at least on that logic. So.
All right. Thank you so much. And I was remiss not mentioning before we started the hearings today in the beginning of the meeting that we did have our donkey versus elephant basketball game last night, where unfortunately for my team, the elephants prevailed, but also a big round of applause for Senator Steinbeck, who's definitely an MVP. All right. I don't see any further questions, so we are going to have you two step back from the table, and we're going to open up Assembly Bill 280 for testimony in support. We'll start in our physical locations and then move to the phones. Just as a reminder, this is 20 minutes and 2 minutes per person, just so we can make sure we get through all 4 bills with comment on each. Thank you. Not seeing anyone coming to the tables in either of our physical locations, we're going to move to the phones. Broadcast, do we have anyone on the phones in support of Assembly Bill 280?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 280, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much, Broadcast. We are going to move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 280, and we'll have you come up to the tables in our physical locations, and then we'll move to the phones.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, John Sandy, SANDE, here today on behalf of the Nevada State Apartment Association. Want to say how much we appreciate the Majority Leader and her passion for housing issues. Unfortunately, however, we do have some concerns with this bill. Not as it relates to the disclosure of fees. We actually supported similar legislation that was proposed last session. What I am here to express our concern about is the portion involving rent control. While rent control aims to make the housing more affordable, extensive economic research indicates that over time, it often leads to reduced affordability, fuels gentrification, and creates negative spillovers in surrounding neighborhoods. For instance, in a study by the Brookings Institution, they found that rent control may provide short-term relief for current tenants, but the long run, it decreases affordability and contributes to gentrification. Moreover, rent control would lead to a decrease in the quality and quantity of available housing. Landlords facing capped revenues may be less inclined to invest in property maintenance, resulting in deteriorating housing conditions. A comprehensive study highlighted that rent control often leads to reduced housing quality due to landlords' diminished incentives for upkeep. Additionally, rent control policies can discourage new housing developments, exacerbating housing shortages. For example, after an implementation of strict rent control measures in Montgomery County, Maryland, multifamily property transactions decreased by 13% in the first 3 quarters of 2024 compared to the same period in 2023, indicating reduced investment in housing. In light of these findings, it's critical to consider alternative solutions to addressing housing affordability without the adverse effects associated with rent control. Policies that promote increased housing supply, such as incentivizing new construction and reducing regulatory barriers, may offer more sustainability outcomes for our community. And want to say that I know the Majority Leader has engaged in efforts to increase housing supply. However, we just really have concerns about this effort as it relates to rent control. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I would point out this is incredibly narrow and only a pilot program, but we thank you very much for your comments. And we are going to go to those that have joined us in Las Vegas. So welcome, and please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Pazina, everybody. Thank you so much. CYRUS, HOJJATY. We appreciate the efforts, but we will echo the comments made by the previous speaker. I yield my time.
Chair Pazina, members of the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, my name is Anahit Bakhshetyan. For the record, that is ANA, HIT, BAGH, SHETSYN, and I'm a research assistant at Nevada Policy. Today, Nevada policy comes in opposition of AB 280, and as the testimonies before me echoed, the reason is not the disclosure of fees, rather it is the rent control pilot program that is being proposed. Rent control, even in limited forms and in limited scope, creates a serious long-term consequence for the Nevada's housing market. Limiting rent increases to 5% for a subset of tenants may offer short-term relief for these retirees that we heard about today, but it also distorts the price signals to allow housing supply to adjust to the rising prices and also the rising demand. Because of the vague criteria, additionally, this program might attract people who are retirees, but also who can afford rent increases. This kind of restriction discourages new construction, disincentivizes investment in existing rental properties, and particularly in a state where housing availability is already lagging behind the population growth. The impact is also going to be huge on the small landlords, as Senator Ellison mentioned earlier. Many of these individuals rely on rental income solely to keep up their everyday activities and their regular streams of income. So blanket caps on rent, even if temporary, even if segmented, will have a negative effect on the small landlords. Additionally, it could have just a chilling effect on entire housing ecosystem and signal to future landlords that rent controls are on the table and are something that the legislature will be considering in the long term. So for these reasons, Nevada policy stands in opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming out today. Do we have anyone else in our physical locations? Not seeing anyone, we're going to go to the phones broadcast. Is there anyone who'd like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 280 on the phone lines?
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 280, please press star 9 now. Caller, please continue.
Hi, Madam Chair. My name is Maurice Washington. I'm a legislative liaison for Americans for Prosperity. We oppose AB 280, which requires landlords to return application fees collected by prospective tenants under certain conditions and prohibits changing application fees for minors. It mandates that written agreements for dwelling units, including fees and tenants' rights section. In addition, additionally, it makes it illegal to change tenant-specific fees and temporarily prevents landlords from raising rents for existing tenants by more than a specific amount. Therefore, we oppose AB 280.
Chair, you have no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will move to testimony in neutral on Assembly Bill 280. Not seeing anyone coming to our tables in the physical locations, we're moving back to you, broadcast. Anyone on the phone lines who's just joined us who'd like to testify in neutral?
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 280, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. Assembly member, would you like to make any closing statements on AB 280? Okay. With that, then, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 280 and get to the aforementioned Assembly Bill 241, which also revises provisions relating to housing, and we will welcome you back to the table. Thank you.
Good morning again, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Sandra Howdigi, proudly representing Assembly District 41. And I'm proud to be here today to present Assembly Bill 241. Nevada is facing a severe housing shortage, and this shortfall has led to skyrocketing rents and home prices, making it increasingly difficult for working families and young professionals and retirees to find affordable housing. According to a study done by Applied Analysis and the Southern Nevada Home Builders, we have approximately 8 years left of land to build on. We are not, in Southern Nevada, I should disclose that, we are not only in a housing supply shortage, but also in a land shortage. I know through my work on housing issues that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to solving the affordability and housing epidemic, which is why I'm working on various bills that deal with protecting seniors, a resolution urging Congress to pass Senator Cortez Masto's Lands Bill, and Assembly Bill 241, which you have before you, to open up more buildable land for multifamily dwellings in run-down, underutilized retail and commercial lots. The data shows that Nevada's workforce mainly lives in apartments because that's what's most attainable given our tight supply. Some quick facts for you. 1, in Las Vegas alone, rents have surged by over 40% in the past 5 years. 2, Reno has experienced a notable increase in rental prices. In 2020, the average apartment rent in the Reno-Sparks area was approximately $1,680. As of February 2025, the average rent for an apartment in Reno stands at $1,831. Last, nearly 1 in 4 Nevada renters spends more than 50% of their income on housing, placing them at risk of financial instability. Chair and committee members, to combat this national housing supply shortage, state governments as well as local governments in cities and counties larger and smaller than ours are mandating changes to their zoning laws. Montana lawmakers in 2023 passed a suite of bills known as the Montana Miracle. The bills included the Land Use Planning Act that required various changes to local planning and zoning processes. Another law, Senate Bill 323, required that municipalities of a certain population allow duplexes in single-family zones. A third bill, Senate Bill 528, required all cities to allow accessory dwelling units. And last, Senate Bill 245, which required local governments with a population of 5,000 or more to allow mixed use and multiple unit dwellings in commercial areas. And thus, Assembly Bill 241 was born. I looked at how other states were tackling housing and found an opportunity in Montana's Senate Bill 245. I immediately thought of the old, rundown, vacant, and abandoned Kmart on Spring Mountain and Decatur and thought, what a great opportunity for a multifamily development near shopping and transportation. Rezoning commercial property for multifamily housing is a practical and immediate solution to increase housing supply and address affordability issues. And there are benefits to infill development. Many commercial properties, particularly aging strip malls and vacant office buildings, are underutilized. Repurposing them for housing makes better use of existing infrastructure. Building homes closer to jobs, schools, and public transit reduces commute times, lowers greenhouse gas emissions, and decreases urban sprawl. Madam Chair, with your permission, I would like to turn it over to Jennifer Lewis with the Nevada Multifamily Allowance, who has agreed to be here to help answer questions and say a few words. The Nevada Multifamily Alliance is a group of 6 apartment developers who have built, owned, and now manage more than 20,000 units across Nevada, and Ms. Lewis is joining us down in Las Vegas.
Good morning, Senators, and I'm Jennifer Lewis, Jennifer Lewis, Lewis, proudly representing the Nevada Multifamily Housing Coalition. I'm pleased to be here to support AB 241. Zoning reform can seem like a big topic because land use underpins our entire economy, whether it touches our housing, our current and future residents, and growing our economy further. Currently, 66% of Nevada residents live in single-family units, just 21.4 live in complexes of over 5 units. The pattern is no longer sustainable with Nevada's land constraints. In 2023, the American Planning Association tracked at least 11 state legislatures that were involved in reworking zoning laws. The housing crisis impacts every part of our state, from education, employment, and future growth, and this is a national crisis. To me, this is a redevelopment and an infill bill. I think all of us in the room see underutilized or abandoned retail or vacant commercial corners that are not likely to develop. These are often well-located parcels with good transportation and other infrastructure, but a current use that is no longer economically viable. The retail and office landscape has changed significantly since pre-COVID, and many retailers have closed up shop. We see this in empty buildings at Clarkson and College, or Spring Mountain Rainbow, or even Green Valley and Warm Springs, even honestly across the street from here. In 2024, the Gwynn Center undertook a study on housing affordability. The goal was to create a list of plausible policy solutions. In order to address the supply, redevelopment and pursuing zoning reform were both at the top of the list of suggestions. Additionally, last year, the RTC did a study showing 82,000 acres of underutilized acreage in the valley. So to me, this bill offers a way to offer more missing middle on smaller parcels with maybe duplexes or triplexes. We know we're running out of land and we need to grow in new and more efficient ways. Multifamily, whether it be apartments, townhomes, condos, or other product, is workforce housing. Obviously, to answering kind of some questions I've gotten, not every commercial site is entirely appropriate for multifamily. Land use should always be guided by health, safety, and welfare. There are areas where the adjacent uses may be problematic, such as heavy manufacturing or hazardous storage. Airport environs, adjacency to military facilities, and other considerations are also necessary. And I'd anticipate that the scale and massing of the multifamily would also be important. And I think that's something that would be best dealt with by ordinance. But in conclusion, I support this bill, and I think it's a good thing to add to our housing supply.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before we go into questions, I did want to let the committee know that there are some changes coming to the bill. One of the changes that was requested was that the implementation date of October 1st, 2026 be actually moved up. So we are considering moving that up to January or February of 2025. So it's section 1, sub 1, where it reads not later than October 1st, 2026, each governing body shall adopt an ordinance. We do want to move that up because we want to give this plenty of time to be put to use before the next legislative session so we can see if it is working. I am also working with the Urban Consortium on changing some of the language. They have sent language. I have not had an opportunity to look at it, so I wanted to present the bill as is because I have not had an opportunity to review language, but we are looking at possibly changing some of the language to make it more of a conditional use permit. And with that, we are open to questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation from yourself and from Ms. Lewis. And with that, we will open.
I'm sorry, Chair. I did want to let the committee know that there were 2 amendments submitted that I am considering friendly amendments. One was submitted by Lindsay Knox that would exclude areas around the Tahoe Basin area. And the second amendment was submitted by Ashley Garza from Clark County that would exclude areas around airports.
Thank you so much. And do make sure that you're looking at your computers so you can make sure if you haven't seen those amendments that you do. And thank you for sharing that. Do we have any questions? We'll start with Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for presenting this bill to us. I just wanted to clarify, and now, of course, I've moved away from the text of the bill, that in Section 1, Subsection 1, where it says a governing body, I assume that refers to governing body as defined by 278.015. So we're basically talking about every single city council and every single county commission. And so my question is then, where to overlap, does that mean that like the City of Mesquite and the Clark County Commission would both have to submit these plans?
I'm going to ping my co-presenter on what happens when you submit an application on a commercial property that's located in 2. I'm a senator. I want to ping Ms. Lewis to answer, but I believe it's whoever has jurisdiction over the zoning of the commercial property. But I want to ping Ms. Lewis to.
Jennifer Lewis, JENNIFERLEWIS for the record. Senator, typically only one entity has controlling interest in the zoning for I don't want to speak out of turn on Mesquite or Northern Nevada because I don't know as much about that. But typically you're just submitting like to Clark County or Henderson or North Las Vegas or the city. And I can't remember if Mesquite is incorporated or not, whether I believe that is actually part of Clark County, but you just would submit to the Zone 1 planning division.
May I follow up? So that would be applying for one of these permits, but the bill as I'm reading it requires the governing body itself to implement an ordinance. So we're saying that the City of Mesquite needs an ordinance, the City of Las Vegas needs an ordinance, the City of North Las Vegas needs an ordinance, and Clark County needs an ordinance.
Correct, Assemblymember Sandra Howdigi for the record. And so Clark County's ordinances would apply to the properties that are under their jurisdiction, like unincorporated Clark County. And so the City of Las Vegas ordinances would apply to the City of Las Vegas properties that are within the City of Las Vegas, but also within Clark County, but their ordinances would apply to them.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to go to Senator Ellison and then to Senator Daly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question on Section 1. I don't know if you're aware of, but a lot of the cities and the counties have multiple use right now on commercial and residential. And if you look at a lot of the old places in cities and towns, Las Vegas, go down and look at some of the other places where there's a store underneath and an apartment up above. And it's a multi-use. And they're everywhere. So this law, would this change this? Because I tell you what, it's either going to be commercial or residential, but there's so many places that are multi-use, and every city and county in the state's got them. So could you answer that? And under Section 1.1, it says the ordinance authorizes a right for multiple family housing, but there's already on the books in almost every county is. And look at the Pappas case. They lived in Las Vegas. They lived upstairs, and they hid the business downstairs, and they used eminent domain to throw her out, and then it took years and years and years to settle the case. But she lost her business, lost her home, lost everything in one shot. So I want to make sure that we don't get into some of these units because I think that these laws are on there in the books. I mean, all the new commercial are commercial and all the residential are residential, but there's still stuff on the books that are multi-use. Could you answer that?
Assemblymember Sandra Howdigy for the record, and this isn't intending to change that, Senator Ellison. What this is saying is that this would also allow commercial to also be used as mixed use. So it's not changing residential to multifamily or changing residential to mixed use. What this is doing is saying that any commercial property that is zoned commercial can also be used for multifamily and can also be used for mixed use where you have stores at the bottom and residential on top.
Because what I want to do is make sure that the counties and NACO's here, maybe they can answer a lot of this, but it's already on the books that there's multiple use now that you could use them for both in a lot of these counties. So I think we're going to put the cities and the counties through a lot of work because I think these laws a lot of them are already on the books. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Senator Daly and then Senator Rogish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will start off by saying I have questions and don't think the state should get into local land use policies. And I may have a question for Ms. Lewis in a second. I do know Northern Nevada, my previous work with the union, we've been to many planning commission meetings and then city council meetings, and you got to go through multiple steps for zoning changes. So I understand a desire to maybe streamline that a little bit. But the by right part and then lack of a definition on mixed use, and I know then we were throwing terms around because somebody mentioned multi-use, mixed use is in your bill, but not defined. So I think at the very least, we need to allow the local governments to stick with their definition. They all have definitions of that. I'm concerned that some developers will come in and say, hey, we're doing multifamily, we're doing apartments, we asked for the zoning change, and here we go. Other people are going to come in and say, I really want to do this, I'm going to put in a couple of houses, right, or residences, and by right now I get to go there and change the zoning and do these things. I just not sure what can of worms we're opening now. But maybe the question real quick for Ms. Lewis is, my understanding is if you have a zoning issue change, you would go through the special use permit process. So have there been any multifamily or mixed use projects that have gone through the special use projects and the last special use process in the last 3 to 5 years, whatever, that have been denied? Or is the special use process with the local governments working? I have some follow-ups.
I'll try to answer. Jennifer Lewis, Jennifer Lewis, Lewis. Historically, to do a multifamily, say, in a commercial zone, you'd have to go in and do a zone change. most of the time you have to do a comprehensive plan change and then a zone change. So it's a process that could take between maybe 3 months to 3 years, frankly. And it just depends on the entity, the neighbors, and a lot of other issues. And there's some, I think, that are pending that have been going on for months and months and months. And so it's just, it kind of depends on the process, I think. And one thing I guess I will clarify to back up a little bit is, and I think we touched, Senator Elson touched on it, is that in some places this is a pretty standard thing. Like I know, I think in parts of different entities in the city of Las Vegas, for example, they have form-based codes. So you're really dealing more with the intensity of the use versus the actual use, because you're kind of, zoning is always health, safety, and welfare. And so you're basing it on what is the impact to the neighborhood. And so, you know, there's different traffic impacts on a retail center versus apartments, but they're both more intensive uses than, say, single family or an office or what have you. So it's kind of, the form-based code, I think, deals more with the intensity. And I think that's sort of where this goes. And that's what I think I think the form-based code is a really interesting idea, because you're basically worrying about the intensity and the mass and not so much what exactly it is. But I don't know if that answered the question, though. I'm willing to try again.
No, thank you. And I'll wait to hear from the counties, because she didn't answer the question if any special use permits have been denied in the last 5 years, but that's okay. But she did hit on several of the other issues. Is local governments on land use planning do 50-year master plan uses. They're studying this. They adjust them every 10 years or so, and they try to balance the land use in areas residential. It meets the criteria that they've set up, and then they also plan in a certain amount of commercial uses so that there's amenities, facilities, stores, those types of things relatively close. And, you know, when you think of like a master plan community, they have the housing and they also have areas for commercial. And I think it upsets, right? People, the local governments do long-term master planning for long-term out, and they are better suited at doing all of this stuff. And I think that this bill just sticks our hand in there and says, we're changing this. So if I have a master plan community, say in Somerset or in northern Nevada, and they have this much residential, this part of it of our residential community is zoned for commercial, et cetera, and now that can be changed, and the developer can come in and say, yeah, we're not going to have commercial there, we're going to put in another set of condos or whatever. And now everybody's got to drive another 15 miles to get out and go to the grocery store because that area is not available anymore. So I'm dubious that we should be going forward with some of this stuff. And I know you mentioned Montana. In Nevada's a lot like Montana in some ways, but the biggest city in Montana is Billings at 123,000. Their capital is only at 34,000. The cities and the land use planning and various things, not comparable at all, in my view. I'll let you answer and then we'll go from there.
Thank you for the comments, Senator Daley, and I respect your opinion, but Montana isn't the only state who has changed zoning laws, right? Some of our neighboring states have done it too because we are in a housing epidemic. And so I do believe it is our responsibility to help address housing, right? And not just leave it to the local governments, because we have constituents throughout the states who are reaching out to us and to do something about the affordability issue. And I believe that this is a solution that can help bring affordability by increasing supply. The more supply we have, the more that the price will go down, supply and demand. And so this isn't the only tool in the toolbox that I think is going to fix the housing, but I think we have to look at it from a holistic approach and bring every tool in the toolbox. And I do believe that it is our responsibility as an assembly and as a Senate to work on housing issues.
Understood, if I can, Madam Chair. But I think we're missing certain elements in this, right? Developers want to develop the land, and now they're going to be able to get in for this into otherwise commercial areas. They want to develop to the highest, best use. Local governments, and I've watched them do it, where they've said, hey, what is the mix of housing you're going to have? You want to build all high-end condos, that's not helping with affordability. Certain people are going to be taken care of. That's the highest best use. That's the highest rent return they're going to get. They're not going to develop it unless they can get that. A lot of local governments on this would come in and say, well, we'd like you to have some more affordable, some more reasonably priced. They don't get into low income because that's all subsidized by the feds and completely different rules. But they do say, hey, you have to have a little higher density in this area, lower density in others. And most developers will work with them on that because it's all part of, they do have to get the zoning change. And this upsets that element. So you're saying this is going to have more units because that's going to affect affordability. And I would say we're missing certain elements to hit that target. If I'm the developer, I'm developing to the highest best use. I have new areas I can go into now with, I take all of this zoning stuff that I have to do now, any ability for the local government to try to negotiate with me to get a little more affordability in there or better housing mix, right? All that's gone. I can come in, I'm going to develop the highest best use. I'm not going to care a lick about affordability. I'm going to try to get the best rent return that I can. So there's elements of this that are missing. And the other thing, just final comment on this, and Ms. Lewis spoke to it directly, all of the processes around land use, zoning changes on the master plan that's been done, what people expect when they buy in an area and various things, that's going to be commercial, and we're hoping it's get developed for these types of things. Every time there is a zoning change, it has to go through the process. Planning Commission, Regional Planning Governing Board in Northern Nevada anyway, back to the county city council. If they deny it, it goes back, et cetera. And that is where the public has their input on what their community is going to look like. And this short circuits that. Again, the state sticking their hand in and saying, you don't know what you're doing, local governments. We know better. And I just think it's a mistake for us to do that.
And with that, we're going to go to Senator Rogich.
Thank you,
Oh,
Madam.
I'm so sorry. I thought you were making a statement. It sounded like a lot of statements, but we will let the Assembly member answer, and then we'll go to you. And I apologize, Senator Rogich.
Thank you, and thank you, and I appreciate the feedback, Senator Daly, and that's one of the things, like, I want all commercial property to be able to be used for mixed use and multifamily use, right? But we still want to give the local governments some discretion. See, those were some of the conversations we had with what should be built there, what type of mixed use, how tall, how big, setbacks, right? We still want to give them that sort of discretion, but I do want every commercially zoned property to be able to be used for mixed use and multifamily. And I know that developers will build to what, is highest and best, but they're also going to build what's going to sell or what's going to be rented, right? They're not going to put in luxury condos at the Kmart on Spring Mountain and Rainbow, right? They're not going to do that. They're not going to build luxury condos there. And so I think it is a balancing act, right? We're opening up available parcels to be built on to increase inventory, but we're still, again, I haven't reviewed language, but we're still looking at ways to be able to give local governments some discretion on what type of multi-family or mixed use can be built there, knowing that every property can be used for commercial, mixed use, and multifamily.
And thank you for that. I think we just need a little language about they have some of that discretion. Not too much, because you don't want them to play games either. I do agree with the Tahoe Basin and the airport regions being carved out. The Tahoe Basin's a whole nother game. But I think we just need a little wiggle room for their definition of mixed use to be allowed.
And I do, you touched on the public input part, but I think that's a lot of why it's our responsibility too, is, I've had constituents in my community blow up my phone and email and knock on my doors, right, because of an apartment complex that's being built next to our subdivision of single family residences, and they want me to call the county commissioner and they want me to put an end to it. But everyone in our state deserves housing, and everyone in our state deserves affordable housing to live in. And so, unfortunately, NIMBYism is real, and I think that's some of our responsibility to be able to have to address that and say, hey, everyone deserves housing, and we need multifamily housing, because again, that's where Nevada's workforce lives.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the questions, Senator Daly. We're going to go to Senator Rogich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reconfirm that really the intent is to repurpose these vacant commercial properties and increase the housing, correct? And that it's been done in other areas, not just Montana, but Milwaukee, New York, with great success, where they've converted the malls into these type of apartments for long-term living. So if you can confirm that, please.
Assemblymember Sandra Howdy, for the record, yes. That's the intent of the bill. I drive them down in my district, you know, have these little side streets that feed off Las Vegas Boulevard that aren't on Las Vegas Boulevard, or else they would be able to automatically be multifamily mixed use. But there are these little side streets, right, that feed off, that are just run down strip malls with maybe one liquor store or one other, and everything else is vacant there.
Thank you so much. And it wasn't your answers that scared Senator Daley away. He is going up to present in the Assembly. Do we have any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much, and we'll have you take a step back. I would like to remind everyone that we are keeping comments to 2 minutes since we have 20. I just want to make sure as many people as possible have the opportunity to speak, and we will open it up. With that said, for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 241, starting in our physical locations, and then we'll move to the phones.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera-Georgeson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Nevada Conservation League. We are here in support of AB 241, a bill that we believe takes an essential step to encouraging infill development across the state. Recent polling confirms that over 75% of Nevadans support using existing underutilized lands and infill development for housing rather than selling off our treasured public lands. Infill offers numerous environmental benefits, including reducing urban sprawl and preserving natural landscapes. At the same time, it can lower emissions and reduce traffic congestion. With that, we urge the committee support, and thank you for your time.
Madam Chair, good morning, members of the committee. For the record, John Sandy, SANDE, here today on behalf of the Nevada State Apartment Association. As we've been discussing this morning, Nevada's facing a serious housing shortage. More than half of the renters are cost burdened, spending over 30% of their income on rent. The single most effective way to reduce housing costs is to increase the housing supply. As one of the attorneys for our association typically says, he says there's not a single issue between landlords and tenants that can't be solved by doubling the housing supply. And what he means by that is doubling the housing supply would bring down costs. It would make landlords compete with one another for those tenants. It overall will make our housing better, and that's what this bill is seeking to do, is increasing that housing supply. This type of policy doesn't just improve affordability, it helps revitalize underused commercial areas and supports walkable, vibrant communities. In short, AB 241 is a smart land use policy with immediate long-term benefits. Senator Daley's gone, but Senator Scheibel might remember, in the Assembly, I recall a similar project up in North Reno. There used to be a Kmart up there that some young developers, they're actually around my age, and they did this a number of years ago. I was so impressed by it, but they took that Kmart parking lot and built a beautiful apartment complex up there. And so when I envisioned this bill, I envisioned projects like that, what can revitalize areas of a community, especially when they're non-productive commercial sites. And so we would urge your support of this bill, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. You said Senator Daley's name and he appeared. It was like magic.
Good morning, Chair Pazina and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Mindy Elliott, Mendy, ELLIOTT, today representing multiple housing authorities. And Mr. Sandy took the words out of my mouth, so I'm just going to say thank you to the bill sponsor, and we support the bill.
Good morning, Chair Pazina, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today. For the record, my name is Cassidy Wilson, Cassidy Wilson, with McDonald Carano. I'm here today representing the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. The Builders Association was founded in 1956 and represents more than 700 companies and advocates on issues affecting residential development and home building across Northern Nevada. The Builders Association of Northern Nevada, BAN, is in strong support of AB 241. We all share a common concern, the high cost of housing in Nevada and the barriers it creates for individuals and families who aspire home ownership. These prices are not arbitrary. They're a result of basic economics, high demand and little supply. Just last session, in a bipartisan effort, this legislature passed AB 213, led by Majority Leader Howdy, affirming that consistent and robust supply of housing is an important factor of overall affordability of housing. AB 241 builds directly on that principle. AB 241 will help streamline the process and unlock new opportunities for housing development, particularly in multifamily housing. Multifamily units are a critical component of our housing supply. They offer an affordable and attainable path for homeownership, especially for first-time homebuyers and working families. They also create housing stability and a foundation to build equality, the cornerstone of financial security of many Nevadans. We want to thank Majority Leader Howdigi for continuing to champion supply side and solutions for our housing crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And we are going to move to Las Vegas. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, everyone. CYRUS, HOJJATY. I'm the local chapter leader of Strong Towns Las Vegas. We promote alternative planning ideas from the status quo, from what we've had for decades, something that's more traditional. We promote something that's transit-oriented, mixed use, which what the bill really represents. There's something that's more walkable and bikeable. We will echo the previous comments. This bill highly reflects that. However, we want to make sure that street design also matters. We want to make sure that the new development is essentially surrounded by streets where people can walk and get around by bicycle. We're excited that infill development is being promoted. We do not want codes and regulations getting in the way, which makes it more and more difficult. So we hope this bill passes. We hope that this will shake things up, and I can't wait to get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I don't see anyone else in our physical location, so we're going to move to the phones. Broadcast, do we have anyone on the phone lines who would like to testify in support of AB 241?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 241, please press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits of 113, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Again, caller with the last 3 digits of 113, please press star 6. Thank you. Please continue.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Olivia Tanager. For the record, on behalf of the Sierra Club Toy Abbey chapter, we are in strong support of this bill and really appreciate the bill sponsor bringing it forward. As many of you probably know, my organization has been fighting against urban sprawl for a long time all across Nevada. We believe that infill development is environmentally preferable to urban sprawl in Nevada because it makes more efficient use of land and existing infrastructure, reducing the need to extend roads, utilities, and public services into undeveloped desert areas. Right now, there's a renewed focus on our public lands for housing, and there was a study that was just released saying that there are almost 80,000 acres in the Las Vegas Valley that could be used for infill. So really a substantial amount of land that we could still use in the footprint of our existing urban areas, places where public transit already runs nearby, places where we already have utility infrastructure, where we already have roads, places that are close by to people's work, their schools, grocery stores, things like that, so that folks can either walk or use public transportation, which would be critical for our limited biodiversity or diminishing biodiversity in the state of Nevada. It also reduces vehicle miles traveled pretty significantly. So given all of the concerns associated with sprawl, we really support these efforts, these really great, well thought out efforts to promote infill, and encourage your support as well. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Connie McMullen, CONNIE-MCMULLEN, and I represent the Senior Coalition of Washoe County here in Northern Nevada. We support AB 241 because it will enable older adults to age in place. It is so critical that this occur, and locally there will be discussion, yes, but there has to be a recognition that there are people that need to continue to live in our community. It can't be all for people who have upper income. And there's been a certain amount of greed in our communities. And it's about time that they also make room for younger people as well as older adults. And in recognition of Older Americans Month, which is this May, we support AB 241. I also want to recognize AB 280. I was not able to get on the phone, but we also support that as well. And we support the sponsors of this bill, her efforts and her recognition that there are older Americans suffering right now. Thank you and good morning. Bye-bye.
Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, we will move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 241, starting in our physical locations and then moving to the phones.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Warren Hardy, representing the Nevada Urban Consortium. Before I get into the bill, I did want to address a question that Senator Scheibel asked. Mesquite is an incorporated city, and I think the intent of the legislation is that the city or county that handles the zoning would handle this. If it's not clear in the legislation, we probably need to address that. But for the county, it would be only for unincorporated portions of Clark County. The others would fall into the jurisdiction of their cities. Does that go into my 2 minutes, or can I? Okay, I'll hurry.
You're down to 1 point. No, I'm just kidding. No, that does not count.
So I'm here under the rules of the committee. We have had very fruitful conversations with the majority leader and really appreciate her willingness to work with us to address these concerns. I'm a little freaked out this session about how much I'm agreeing with Senator Daley, but I think some of his comments reflect the way we feel. However, as a former member, I would never question the ability of this body to engage in any policy matter they choose to engage in. And I do think this legislation would streamline the process and streamline the system. We are in full support of mixed use and multifamily, particularly when it comes to infill. This bill would allow it on vacant property, which gives us a little bit of a heartburn, but it's such a powerful tool for mixed use. For infill, which is where we're aggressively moving that direction to be able to provide for that. We are working with the sponsor to provide for an amendment that would get at the issue Senator Daley brought up, and that is us having some ability to set standards on the land. In addition, we are working to clarify that, I don't think it's in the bill, but we want to make sure it's clear that this would not require a zoning change, which would make it a lot longer process, but that it would be a permitted use under commercial, and it already says in the bill, not industrial, but under commercial use, it would be a permitted use, which would streamline the process. Currently, in most cases, you would have to go for a special use permit to do this on commercial zoning. This would eliminate that and provide a permitted use as long as you meet the standards that are in the ordinance, which is our intent. And so we're looking forward to finalizing that amendment and moving to support of the legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Vincent Guthreau, spelled V-I-N-S-O-N, last name Guthreau, G-U-T-H-R-E-A-U. I'm the executive director of the Nevada Association of Counties. I'm here on behalf of all 17 of our members. I echo that we're sort of here under the rules of the committee. We want to thank the majority leader for working on the amendments and the ones that she considers friendly, which include the carving out of the Clark County Airport, and then the Harry Reid International Airport, and also the Lake Tahoe Basin. So we appreciate her acceptance of those. Our members at NACO understand and share the goal of the sponsor's bill for infill and mixed use, and we believe that there's a current process that accomplishes this goal, and I think streamlining it isn't the worst thing, but I do think we need some provisions to allow for our members to reflect the unique characteristics of each of their communities. We believe, again, reflecting what the previous testifier said, there are some amendments floating out there. The sponsor also mentioned them that would move us, I think, to a different position. So I want to put that on the record for our members. And I just have one last item. I know there was a question around data. I do have some information from Clark County that since 2022, they have not denied an application for a multifamily project. So that was asked by the committee. I want to put that on the record for folks, just because I happen to have it on me. So other than that, thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guthreau, and also Mr. Hardy for answering some of the questions that had been asked. And we are going to move to Las Vegas. We thank you for being here and ask you to begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Jill Douglas, Douglass. I'm speaking as a concerned citizen. I stand in opposition to AB 241. I previously testified against this bill when it was in the Assembly. In my opinion, this is state government overreach. While well-intended, I'm concerned about the bill's impact on existing zoning laws and community planning. State-mandated changes may override local control and ignore the voices of affected citizens, and may lead to developments that are inconsistent with community character or infrastructure capacity. I'm also concerned about potential strains on public services and resources resulting from increased population density in areas originally designated commercial use. Local governments and citizens affected should be engaged and involved, preserving local autonomy and community integrity, not the state government. Please vote no on AB 241. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Johnston Linsday, Linsday, and I want to say thank you to Senator Daley for his questions and the points that he's made. I respect that, and I also want to ditto Jill Douglas. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We always appreciate when members of the public come and speak, and we thank you for being here today. Not seeing anyone else in our physical locations, we are going to move to the phone lines broadcast. Is there anyone who'd like to testify in opposition of AB 241 on the phones?
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 241, please press star 9 now.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kimberly Fergus, KIMBERLY FERGUS. I want to I'm actually thanking Senator Daley for asking all the questions that I had written down. But I do want to point out that I'm against all these mandates. Cities, counties approve multifamily housing by right. I don't like it when the public, you can't voice your opinion. This voids existing local zoning ordinance. It contains an unfunded mandate. Why it fails as a housing solution that you guys are saying that this is to fix our housing, it doesn't build a single unit. There's no affordability requirement. No funding included. It removes the local voice. It's a one-size-fits-all approach. Bottom line, 241 is a land use overreach, not a housing fix. You know, nobody has ever mentioned on our housing shortage. The reason that we have housing shortages is because of the interest rate. Once they raised that interest rate from the 2% all the way up to the 6-7%, that's when our housing became impossible. You know, I mean, there's people building. I'm all for multi-use on these vacant lands and stuff like that. But these bills need to be, there needs to be a lot of amendments, and they need to probably ask some realtors what to do with this bill. I urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Chair, you have no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. And with that, we are going to move to testimony in neutral on Assembly Bill 241. We'll start in our physical locations and then move to the phones. Ms. Knox.
Douglas County, and we just wanted to thank the Majority Leader for accepting our amendment to exempt the Tahoe Basin.
Thank you so much. And not seeing anyone else coming forward to testify in neutral, we are going to move to the phone lines broadcast. Back to you. Is there anyone who'd like to testify in neutral on AB 241?
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 241, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. Assemblymember Howdigi, would you like to make any closing statements? Okay. Well, with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 241, and we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 411, which revises provisions relating to prescription drugs, and we will welcome you back to the table.
Good morning again, Chair. Here for my last bill. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Sandra Howdigi, and I proudly represent Assembly District 41. I'm proud to be here to present Assembly Bill 411. I've introduced Assembly Bill 411, a simple but powerful step towards privacy, dignity, and security for those who provide essential reproductive care. This bill allows prescription labels for medications like mifepristone and misoprostol, the medications used in medication abortion and miscarriage management, to display the name of the healthcare practice rather than the prescribing provider. This bill is not merely a policy proposal, it is a necessary step to ensure that our healthcare providers can offer essential services without fear. In recent years, there has been a concerted effort in various states to restrict access to abortion services, particularly targeting medication abortions, which account for approximately 63% of all abortions in the United States. States such as Texas and Louisiana have enacted laws that not only ban abortion after a certain gestational period, but also impose severe penalties on healthcare providers who prescribe these inducing medications. These restrictive measures have created a climate of fear among healthcare practitioners, discouraging them from providing necessary care and consequently limiting access for patients seeking safe and legal reproductive care. Nevada is not alone in recognizing the need for protective legislation. Several states have enacted SHIELD laws to protect providers and patients from out-of-state investigations and prosecutions. As of April 2024, 17 states and Washington, D.C. have such statutes on the books, including California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington State. New York is the first state to pass a law to expand its SHIELD laws to protect the name of the healthcare provider from being printed on prescription bottles, if they request it. Since then, numerous states have introduced this expansion to their SHIELD laws, including Illinois and Colorado. These laws serve as a testament to the growing recognition of the need to protect reproductive health care services and those who provide them. With your permission, Chair, I would now like to walk the committee through the bill. The bill changes NRS 639.2801, Section 1, Sub 3, to say that upon request from a prescribing provider, the label for a prescription for mifepristone or misoprostol must instead include the name of the healthcare practice. Chair, I want to make this clear. This bill does not change the law on medication abortion in Nevada. It does not change who can prescribe. It does not change patient rights. What it does is make sure that healthcare providers can do their jobs without fear and that patients can receive the care they need without stigma or obstruction. I do want to make a note that I am working on an amendment with Ms. Liz McMiniman on extending some protections too, similar to those that we have extended in statute in previous sessions for physicians that protect them from criminal penalties. So extending that same protection to pharmacists and pharmacies since if they are not going to include the name of the physician on the label, making sure that they're protected from any criminal penalties because the state of Louisiana has made these two drugs controlled substances so that they can fall under the controlled substance federal regulations. And so I want to make sure that pharmacists have the same protections that physicians have and that they can also fulfill their prescriptions and fulfill their obligations without fear. And with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from the committee? Senator Scheibel.
Thank you so much for bringing this bill. And I think my questions are more of comments, but I do want to just kind of see if there's anything that I'm missing here. two things. First of all, I know I recently had to do like an online telehealth appointment with a doctor for an antibiotic when I had a cold. And then when I went to go pick up the prescription from the pharmacy, the name on it was not the person that I met with. Like, I think sometimes the health organizations already utilize like a network of doctors, and so the person who I met with may not have been the person who even signed the ultimate prescription. And so I'm wondering if that might happen in these cases as well, where the prescribing doctor or the person whose script pad is ultimately used might not even be the provider who initially met with the patient. And I don't know if you know if that happens.
I don't. In the case of mifepristone or misoprostol, I don't know the answer to that question, Senator Scheibel. I'm not sure if it has to be the prescribing doctor who you meet with.
Okay.
No.
And I hope I didn't just like tell on my insurance company, because it was not a big deal to me. I mean, it made sense. I get it. They probably met with 35 other people that day, and they have a system where I assume they have checks and balances. I got the right antibiotics. I'm better now. But my other comment in question was going to be, it also seems like the law already to require the name of the prescribing doctor on the we're talking about the physical bottle, is a little bit antiquated, because we've been doing that for probably 100 years, since prescriptions had to be like carried by horseback from one provider to another in order to get filled. And now that we do things online, now that we have, Google, and you can look up the name of the clinic that you went to, and you can find their phone number more easily, it seems like it's far less important now to have the person's name on that label, when there are so many other ways to get in contact with your healthcare provider, and for your pharmacy to get in contact with them, and for your insurance company to get in contact with them. It seems like we're not really losing out on any kind of, crucial healthcare information by removing these names from labels.
Thank you for your comment, Senator. I agree. And the name of the prescribing physician and their contact information still has to be on the prescription itself. So on the prescription, it still has to be there. What we're doing is just trying to protect them and removing their information and just putting the clinic's information on the label versus their name.
I have one more comment, because this just made me think of, an incredibly sad situation, but one that I've seen similar situations in my career working with survivors of domestic violence. And I think for a lot of them who are seeking a medication abortion, the one thing they might bring back into their home is that bottle. And so being able to protect the person who provided them with that crucial health care from someone who's abusive, I think is, always worth doing.
Thank you so much. And also kind of a question just to confirm, and I feel like this was maybe confirmed in Senator Scheibel's questions earlier, but the contact information, if there were any questions about the prescription, would still be available, correct?
So the language says in subsection 1 that the name of the prescribing practitioner and the person who prescribed must be removed. But the name of the clinic and the clinic contact information can still be on there in place of the physician's information.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Okay. Senator Ellison.
I might not have heard that. I apologize, but if you have a pharmacy that has to have a question about a prescription, wouldn't they want to know the exact doctor that prescribed that? That would have to be on the prescription bottle or something. Would they know that they could contact them?
Thank you for the question, Senator Ellison. Assemblymember Sandra Haudegi for the record. So nothing changes on the actual prescription, the actual physical, prescription that either gets sent electronically or if it's a handwritten notepad one. So the physician's contact information, the physician's name is still required to be on that. All we're asking is that it be removed upon request from a physician from the actual label on the prescription bottle.
Okay, I don't see any further questions, so I'm going to thank you so much and have you take a step back. I would remind everyone when you're coming up, we want to give everyone an opportunity to speak. I saw on our sign-in sheets that we had a number of people who'd like to speak on this particular bill. And while you absolutely have 2 minutes, the longer you speak, someone else might not get an opportunity in that 20 minutes. So I just want to give everyone time. So with that said, we are going to open testimony in support of AB 401. For those in our physical locations, please come forward and then we'll move to the phones.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Charles Olander, CharlesOlander. I'm an organizer with Planned Parenthood Advocates Miramonte. AB 411 is a simple bill that will protect healthcare providers from harassment while preserving safe legal access to care for patients across Nevada. With increased threats to providers nationwide, we think it's important that we protect the providers who ensure that Nevadans can access the full spectrum of reproductive care, including abortion. I urge you to support AB 411. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we are going to move to the phone lines for those who'd like to testify in support of AB 411.
If you would like to testify in support of AB 411, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Liliana Trejo Vanegas, Liliana Trejo Vanegas, and I'm an organizer with Reproductive Freedom for All Nevada. I am testifying today in support of Assembly Bill 411. Abortion is healthcare, and no medical provider or patient should ever fear that their privacy or safety is at risk when seeking and providing this life-saving care. I urge the committee to vote in favor of this bill. Thank you so much.
Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, a reminder, we have 20 minutes and we are going to open up testimony in opposition of AB 411. And we welcome everyone in our physical locations. And then after that, we will move to the phone lines. Do remember, if you're in a physical location and it seems like there's no one else and you're wondering why we're in a hurry, it's because there's also people on the phones and we certainly don't want to exclude them. And with that, you can begin in Carson City when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Crystal Monera Alvis with Nevada Right to Life, KRY is TALMINERA-ALVIS, and I'm here urging you to vote no on AB 411. It has always been said that abortion should be a decision between a woman and her doctor. However, if AB 411 is passed, we won't even know who the doctor is. This lack of transparency creates serious risks, leaving patients vulnerable in emergencies when proper medical oversight is needed. Just this week, the largest known study of the abortion pill, conducted by the Ethics and Public Policy Center, analyzed over 865,000 mifepristone abortions between 2017 and 2023, and it revealed troubling data. Almost 11% of women experience sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, or another serious adverse event within 45 days after taking mifepristone. While the abortion pill's own black box warning states that 1 in 25 women will end up in the emergency room, this new study updates that figure, showing that actually it would be 1 in every 10. These findings demonstrate that the real-world dangers of abortion pill are far more severe than previously reported. The serious adverse events occurring at a rate at least 22 times higher than the clinical trial figure of less than 0.5%. Despite these risks, AB 411 removes physician accountability by eliminating the prescribing doctor's name from abortion pill labels, protecting doctors instead of patients. Every other prescription drug, including high-dosage Tylenol, requires physician identification for oversight and responsibility. Why should a medication with life-altering consequences be exempt? Without clear accountability, patients facing complications such as excessive bleeding or infection are left without critical medical information. In emergencies where seconds matter, doctors are shielded while patients and families scramble for answers. By removing this safeguard, AB 411 makes abortion providers untouchable, and it provides legal protection. For this reason, I urge you to vote no on AB 411. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jenny Cole, C-O-L-E. I'm a licensed nurse practitioner. For 15 years, I've prescribed medications in accordance with all requirements of the state of Nevada, Nevada Board of Pharmacy, and federal DEA. I'm authorized to prescribe medications because of my compliance with the Board of Pharmacy's licensing regulations. I do so after establishing the necessary prescriber-patient relationship. My patients are not prescribed medications from the healthcare practice that I'm employed by. A healthcare practice is not a prescribing entity. I have experienced negligent abortion pill practices firsthand. A woman came to our clinic after receiving her prescription through email. No video call, no phone call, just email. After taking the first medication in the two-step process, she had questions and needed guidance, but there was no one there to help her, no provider for follow-up. If Nevada allows mifepristone and misoprostol to be provided to women without full transparency and accountability, she is not being cared for, and the potential for negative outcomes increases. I ask you to carefully consider who will assume legal consequences for harm. The only reason a provider would hide their name from any prescription at all is to remove their liability from potential negative outcome, wrongdoing, and harm. This is not transparent, responsible, or ethical, and should not be made legal. This is not what I would want for your daughter or mine or any woman in Nevada. Thank you for serving our state and protecting our women. I urge you to vote no on AB 411. Thank you.
Chair and members of the committee, my name is Melissa Clement, M-E-L-I-S-S-A, C-L-E-M-E-N-T, from Nevada Right to Life in opposition to AB 411. No other drug would receive the protection and secrecy granted these two specific pills. What are these pills? They are not morning after, emergency contraception, or Plan B. Abortion pills are a two-drug process. The first drug, mifepristone, starves the baby in utero. The second, misoprostol, ejects the baby. This was originally approved by the FDA with a 3-doctor appointment requirement to protect against ectopic pregnancy issues, sepsis, and infection. Sadly, over the last 25 years, all of these requirements have been lifted. Now the abortion pill regimen often occurs alone at home with no medical supervision. For many women, it is traumatic, painful, and dangerous. Imagine finding your daughter, your sister or wife, bleeding with a high temp and in intense pain. Shouldn't she and you be protected by the bare minimum of a prescription bottle with a doctor's name who has presumably treated her? Loved ones and the emergency medical teams need to know who the prescribing doctor is, not the practice. No one should have to navigate a medical practice phone tree when every second counts. The report just referenced is a current report and dwarfs the tiny clinical trial data the FDA originally used to approve this drug, data based on just 30,000 women and cherry-picked conditions. When this bill was proposed, the bill sponsor was unaware of the report released in this last week. Given these devastating statistics, I urge you to vote no.
We are going to take two more in Las Vegas, and then we're going to go to, two more in Carson City, then we're going to go to Las Vegas and then to the phones, just because I want to get as many people as we can in. Also, everyone's going about 2 minutes, but if you'd like to speak a little under that, it'll give more people a chance to speak. Thank you.
Good morning. Excuse me. My name is Teresa DeGraffenreid, T-H-E-R-E-S-A, D-E-G-R-A-F-F-E-N-R-E-I-D, representing myself today in opposition to AB 411. AB 411 is dangerous for women because it hides the name of the prescribing doctor, which could be very important information in case of a complication after taking the abortion pills. I had this situation when I was in school, when my best friend, who had gotten kicked out of her house, was living with us. She had been taken by her boyfriend to get an abortion without telling anyone. After the procedure, when she was back at home, she started hemorrhaging badly. Because nobody knew about it, we thought she was having a heavy period and laid her on the bed. She started going in and out of consciousness and bleeding out. We finally got her to tell us what the problem was and took her to the emergency room. Abortions by medication is a course of 2 pills. The first pill literally starves the fetus of the hormones it needs, killing it. The second pill causes cramps and heavy bleeding to empty the uterus. If that bleeding is too heavy, as it was with my friend, it's critical to get immediate medical attention. The doctor who prescribes the pill is the best source of information about the patient, and it's important for safety to know who that prescriber is. I wonder why it's important that that the doctor has anonymity. To begin with, even in this testimony today, I was required to publicly say and spell my name. Isn't a woman's health more important than that? It's unbelievable that we would allow providers to hide behind this law when women's health and lives are at stake. Please do not pass this dangerous bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we do like to get everyone's name just so that our secretary is able to record it for the record. But if anyone would like to stay anonymous, you're welcome to do that as well. And thank you.
Good morning, Chair Pazina and members of this committee. Liz McMenamin, MACMENAMIN, for the record, Retail Association in Nevada, representing the chain drug council that we have. I'm coming here for policy reasons because my concerns when I spoke to the majority leader regarding her language was manyfold. First of all, my concern was changing the label. This is our members are nationwide. A smaller pharmacy may not have the same issue as us, but we're nationwide. And to take and change one instance on technically electronic prescriptions now, no longer do we carry them by horse to the next person. So changing that for changing from a provider, we are prohibited according to how we interpret the law by 21 U.S.C. subsection 353 F1, which requires the it's 352 F1, which requires the name of the prescriber on the label to ascertain that the drugs are safe and to be able to by federally go back and find the prescriber. Now, the majority leader is working with the Retail Association and our members for their concerns for a number of reasons, because this would put the liability back on the pharmacist. And let me tell you, the pharmacist is very concerned about their license, and they don't want to lose their license by filling this or changing something that is required by federal law on that prescription. So at this point in time, I'm still working with the majority leader. I appreciate everything she's done. I know this is a passionate issue, and so I appreciate your time this morning listening to our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Hanson, we're going to have you stand by. We're going to go to Las Vegas. We're just trying to get as many people in as we can. So we're going to go to Las Vegas and then go to the phones. We'll get 5 speakers in Las Vegas, and then we'll move to the phones. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Deborah Costello, DEBORAH and I am the Executive Director of First Choice Pregnancy Services, one of the busiest pregnancy resource centers of our kind in the nation and a provider of free abortion pill reversals. Let me share with you just a few of the heartbreaking stories we've encountered at our center from women who took the abortion pill. One mother brought her tiny baby, approximately 7 weeks old, into First Choice Pregnancy Services in a sandwich bag. She asked if everything that was supposed to pass after taking the abortion pill was there, desperately seeking answers in the midst of her heartbreak. Another mother shared with our sonographer the traumatic story of her chemical abortion. She recalled almost reaching the bathroom when, at just 15 weeks, her baby unexpectedly delivered onto the floor. For 3 days afterwards, she battled swelling and a high fever, ignoring the symptoms until a concerned friend urged her to seek medical help. At the hospital, she learned the devastating news: she had been carrying twins, and the second baby was still inside, causing a life-threatening septic infection, and had to undergo a surgical abortion. Since that day, she said she had been haunted by the nightmares every night. Another young woman, just 28 years old, shared her heartbreaking story with us. She had taken the abortion pill to end her only pregnancy, unaware it would lead to a devastating complication requiring a full hysterectomy, robbing her of the ability to ever bear children in the future. These are not isolated incidents. These are real women suffering real trauma, often in silence and often alone. Removing the prescribing physician's name from abortion pill packaging only worsens that isolation. It sends a chilling message: you're on your own, no provider to call, no one responsible, no face to the decision that ended a life and shattered another. I urge you, for the sake of transparency, responsibility, and the safety of women of Nevada, do not strip away the last thread of accountability.
Thank you so much. We're
Please
actually
vote
well
no
over
on
2
AB
minutes.
411.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here. Our next speaker, please, in Las Vegas. And again, we can take 4 more in Las Vegas.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the committee. My name is Elishaba Delote, Delote. I have been an RN surgical charge nurse for 20 plus years, and I oppose AB 411. Why? Because it poses a serious threat to women's health, medical accountability, and emergency care in our state. I strongly oppose this bill, and I urge lawmakers to prioritize patient safety and responsible healthcare practices. There are 3 things I want to highlight. Risk to women's health. By potentially reducing oversight of mifestrone prescription, AB 411 could expose women to severe physical and mental health risk. Without proper medical supervision, complications from medication abortion, such as excessive bleeding or infection, could go undetected or untreated, leading to life-threatening situations. Women deserve comprehensive care, not policies that prioritize convenience over their safety. Second, weakening doctor accountability. This bill also risks letting prescribing doctors off the hook. Inadequate patient screening, insufficient follow-up care, and the potential for overprescription could become more common under AB 411. When doctors aren't held to high standards, patient trust erodes and women are left to face the consequences alone. Accountability must not take a backseat to administrative ease. Third, challenges for emergency personnel. Finally, AB 411 could burden our emergency responders. Without clear records or communication from prescribing doctors, emergency personnel may lack critical information when treating mifestrone-related complication. This delays care, putting both patients and responders at risk in medical crisis. I urge the Nevada Legislature to reject AB 411. Any policies changes must put
Thank you so
patient
much. We're at
safety,
2 minutes,
medical
and I want to get more
accountability.
people in Las Vegas and more people on the phones. But I would encourage you to, everyone who's had
Thank you.
additional testimony, to go ahead and turn that into sencl@sen.state.nv.us so we can have that all of that testimony recorded for the committee. And we thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Grace Trujillo. I'm a PHN. I've been a PHN for 20 plus years. I've worked with a lot of high-risk pregnancy patients in the clinic, in the hospitals, in the different situations. I oppose this bill based solely on what my experience. You have never been in a situation in the field to talk with clients. Imagine you are a father, picks up this medication for his wife, prescribed managed high-risk pregnancy, and the label reads Desert Medical Group, but he has no idea which doctor made the decision. Later, he learns the dosage was incorrect or a mistake that could have been caught if he could trace it back to a specific practitioner. Instead, he's left navigating a maze of bureaucracy, unsure who to trust or blame. This isn't just inconvenience, it's dangerous. Mistakes happen, but hiding the prescriber's identity under this bill makes it harder to correct them, protect patients, ensure justice. We are supposed to be an advocate for patients, not thinking for ourselves when we are in the medical field. Current law requires the prescribing practitioner's names on the prescription labels for reason, transparency as mentioned by everyone, and it ensures patients know who is responsible for their care, fosters direct communication, and upholds accountability. Replacing that with a generic healthcare practice strips away our ability to connect with the human being behind the prescription and the doctor who knows our history, our needs, our fears. It's a step toward depersonalizing medicine at a time when we need connection more than ever. Proponents might argue this change protects practitioners' privacy or shields them from harassment. I understand those concerns, but blurring accountability on prescription label isn't the answer. It sacrifices the patient's safety for the sake of the patient, and that's a trade-off we cannot afford. Knowing the doctor's name on every prescription gives patients confidence to ask questions, seek clarification, and build trust.
Thank you so much
You
for
know,
being
when
here.
you
It is
take
2 minutes, and we only have
write
about a
this
minute
with
left
the
of our 20 minutes, and I
patient,
need to hear from
you're
at
a
least two more
doctor
in
or
Las
you're a
Vegas as well as on the
nurse,
phone.
you take it
So
and
we
you
thank
read
you, and we're
it.
going to have you close out those comments. But thank you so much, and please send your full comments to the Senate address on senatecl@sen.state.mv.us on the agenda so that we can have all of your
Sorry, I was
comments.
not
And we
even
thank
2
you
minutes.
so
I
much.
counted my time. It was not even 2 minutes.
We
You just
actually are
cut me
counting
off.
here as well, and we thank you so much again. But we do need to move to the next speaker, so we're not missing those waiting on the phone. Next speaker, please.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Jill Douglas, Douglass, and I'm speaking as a very concerned citizen. I rise in strong opposition to Assembly Bill 411. This bill seeks to remove the name of the prescribing doctor from the abortion pill prescription, a move that raises serious concerns about transparency, accountability, and patient safety. In every other area of medicine, the prescribing physician is clearly identified. Why should abortion be treated differently? To be clear, removing the doctor's name severs the vital connection between patient and provider. If a woman experiences complications, and we know that that can happen, there are very serious side effects, hemorrhaging, infection, incomplete abortion. How does she or her family know who to follow up with? This bill doesn't empower women, it abandons them. It also opens the door to potential abuse. Without prescribing doctors' information, how do we ensure that the prescription was issued legally? How do we hold bad actors accountable, especially in cases where pills are being distributed illegally or without proper screening? Nevadans deserve a healthcare system rooted in transparency and responsibility. Shielding providers from accountability is not healthcare. It's a political cover at the expense of women's safety. I urge you to reject AB 411. Let's not carve out special protections that compromise medical standards and public trust. Thank you.
Thank you. We're actually already over 20 minutes, but we're going to take one more in Vegas and then move to the phones because I don't want to leave the phones out. Mr. Hajati, I believe you were up next.
Yes, just 10 seconds. CYRUS HOJJATY. I am calling in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to move to the phones broadcast, and we can take a few speakers who are in opposition of AB 411.
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 411, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hi, my name is Katrin Ivanov, Ivano, Frank. I'm very surprised that in a time when your constituents want more transparency, you guys are trying to pass a bill that is actually totally opposite of that. And for the sake of time, I will veto everything in opposition. Please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Kimberly Fergus, FERGUS. I rise in strong opposition to AB 411. This bill sets a dangerous precedent by allowing prescribers of specific drugs, namely now I'm going to butcher these, misprostatone and misoprostol, whatever, to remove their names from the prescription labels and instead substitute the name of the medical practice. This is not about privacy, it's about withholding transparency. In a profession that demands the highest ethical standards, medical providers take an oath to serve patients with honesty, integrity, and accountability. If a practitioner is not comfortable placing their name on a prescription, they should not be prescribing it. This isn't about beliefs, it's about responsibility. We don't allow anonymous medical care in other areas of practice, and we shouldn't begin here. This bill is the tipping point toward a system where medical providers and institutions start hiding behind labels instead of standing by their decisions. It opens the door to obscuring information from patients and undermines trust in the entire healthcare system. Regardless of one's stance on abortion, this is a clear deviation from transparency, and it moves us further from the public expects what the public expects and voted for. I urge you to reject the veiled attempt to normalize secrecy in medical care. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. We can take a couple more. I would remind you, if you can try to be a little bit under 2 minutes, we can take a couple more on the phones. Please continue.
Good morning, Chair Pazina and committee members. My name is Jim DeGraffenreid, JimDeGraffenreid. I am Nevada's Republican National Committee man here today in opposition to AB 411 on behalf of the Nevada Republican Party. We echo the comments made so well earlier by others. We do find it somewhat ironic that a bill designed to hide information is numbered 411. It was clear from the presentation that this bill seeks to make the state of Nevada complicit in interfering with other states' laws by concealing the name of providers who prescribe medications in states where it's illegal for in-state providers to do so. Decades ago, the people of Nevada chose to enshrine some of the most liberal abortion laws in America into statute. We believe that all states should have the ability to decide their laws on abortion, just as Nevada did. Without our state interfering with them, we wouldn't want them to do the same to us. We believe it's important for women's safety that the name of the providing physician is listed on prescriptions, despite the typical desire of the abortion industry to work under the cover of darkness. Please prioritize women's health over corporate wealth and oppose AB 411. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carlo Malouf, Maalouf, a resident of Boulder City, Nevada. And let me get to my notes here. There should be great fear and apprehension about prescribing a drug that kills a human being. And the fear of the physician putting their name on a label seems a little off. If they want to participate in the medical practice, they need to put their name on any label, and any prescribing medication, surgery, or anything like that, take the full responsibility of it. One unintended consequences that's currently happening, and an acquaintance of mine works at the sewer district here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And currently he is, on a daily basis, it seems like, fishing out human beings every day and giving them a proper burial. And this is all from the abortion bill. So it's really happening. We should do something about it. We should not hide behind it. We should be doing something. It's really bad. It really needs to stop. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take one more caller, and then we are going to close testimony in opposition.
Hello, my name is Devin Livesey, Livziey. I am the Vice Chairman of the Clark County Republican Party. This bill was intended to protect the physician from having his name out there on these medications. But instead of putting the physician at risk, supposedly, as you're trying to say, it would put the entire clinic at risk for that purpose. So it seems to me like you're just shifting the, as you want to put it, as it's being said, the threat of whatever it happens to be from the physicians to the entire clinic where that physician works. Also, this is just the first step. I quote if you give an inch, they'll take a mile. What other prescriptions in the future will physicians want their name not to be on? The highly addicted drugs that kill like a Michael Jackson or a Prince, or other drugs like that? For this reason, I think that physicians need to stand up and take the responsibility for their actions, for the prescriptions, whether it be negative or positive, and do their job to the best of their ability. Thank you.
Madam Chair, would you just put our names on as opposing this? Janine Hansen from Nevada Families for Freedom. I appreciate it. I understand your time is up.
Thank you so much. We have your name on in opposition. If you have full comments, we'd invite you to share those with our committee secretary, and we'd love to get those on the record for the committee entirely. If those that are waiting in Las Vegas would like to just give their names in opposition, we would welcome that as well. And we'd also welcome you to share your comments with the committee through, again, it's posted on the agenda, scncl@scn.state.mv.us, so that we can have the entire committee review your comments in full. But if you'd like, the three of you would like to just give your names for the record in opposition, we'd be happy to do that.
Yes, my name is Carl, Karl Reinarz, Reinarz, in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erica Neely, and I'm opposing 411. I just also have one comment, one question. The veterinarians have to write their names on the prescription for animals. So my question to you is, so why wouldn't a woman get the same respect?
Miss Neely, thank you so much. And we have that on the record. We have your name on the record as opposition. And we thank you so much for your time. And I believe we had one more that was in Vegas that would like to have their name on the record, or excuse me, two more. And then we are going to have to move to neutral.
Christiani Mersch, MERSCH, and please vote no in opposition for 411, AB 411. Thank you.
Kimberly Johnston Linsday, Linsday, for opposition. Thank you.
We thank you all so much. And if you had full comments, we ask that you share those with our committee secretary, because we would love to get those on the record to share with the entire committee. And we thank all of you so much for being here present today to share your thoughts. With that, we are going to move to testimony in neutral on AB 411. We'll start in our physical locations, and then we will move to the phone lines. Okay, not seeing anyone in neutral. This is a bill I would imagine we don't have too many people in neutral on, but you never know. So we're going to move to the phone lines.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 411, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. We invite the assembly member up to make any closing comments. And then I believe we also wanted to put something in record. Actually, before you begin, I believe that our legal counsel, Mr. Coulomé, had looked up some of the federal guidelines, and he was going to put that on the record, and then we'll have you make closing statements.
Thank you, Chair Jeff Coulomé from the Legal Division. To the extent that the information is helpful to the committee, I'll first just mention the scope of the bill. The way I read it, there's a difference between a prescription itself that's written by a prescribing practitioner, and then what this bill is talking about is when that prescription is ultimately dispensed to a customer, there's a label that goes on the container itself, the pill bottle, and that label is different than the prescription, the original prescription itself. And I think that's an important distinction about just the scope of the bill. To the extent that the federal question came up about the federal laws, there are extensive federal laws and regulations about labeling. The Federal Drug Enforcement Administration, as you would imagine, has extensive requirements for certain controlled substances about labeling, but federal labeling requirements for human prescription drugs and biological products that are not controlled substances are regulated by the Food and Drug Administration and the Department of Health and Human Services. So my understanding is that these substances are not controlled substances, and so the relevant Code of Federal Regulations section, just to have it on the record if it's helpful, is 21 CFR 201.56, and in that section, I am not aware of any requirement for a name on the label on the container, the pill bottle itself, about the prescribing practitioner, and so to the extent that that's helpful to my reading at this time, this all appears completely consistent with the federal law and regulations about the way the drug stuff works.
Thank you, Chair. And I did want to take the opportunity to give closing comments. You know, there is targeted, real harassment of pharmacists and doctors happening for doing their job. The hostile environment is prompting many providers to withdraw from serving these certain patients, jeopardizing the fundamental right to reproductive health care. We wouldn't need this bill if there weren't threats. Louisiana has issued a national arrest warrant for a New York doctor for prescribing these drugs. They found her name on a prescription bottle. Louisiana's criminal penalties include 15 years in prison, a $200,000 fine, and a loss of license. Reproductive health care is health care, and we need to protect physicians and pharmacists who are simply trying to do their job. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. And with that, we are going to close the bill hearing on 411. And we thank all of the members of the public that came to testify in support and opposition. No one, of course, came in neutral, but we thank all of you very much for being here today. And we are going to move to Assembly Bill 196, which revises provisions governing psychology. And we thank Assemblymember Baucus for being with us today.
Thank you, Chair Pazina, Vice Chair Daly, and Commerce and Labor Committee members. I am Assembly Member Shay Backus, representing Assembly District 37. I am joined here today by my intern, Megan Caballero, a junior at UNR, pursuing a double major in psychology. Sorry about that. Psychology and philosophy, as well as Laura Arnold, who should be joining us by Zoom. Perfect. She's the executive director of the Nevada State Board of Psychological Examiners. We appreciate the opportunity to present Assembly Bill 196, which proposes revisions to the regulation of psychology in Nevada, a vital part of modern healthcare, education, and policy. The request for the Nevada State Board of Psychological Examiners to modify Chapter 641 of the Nevada Revised Statute was a request made by former lobbyist Nina Laxalt to myself. And with her passing and fortunately and coincidentally having an intern who's pursuing studies in psychology, I have had Ms. Caballero work on this bill. She will do most of the presentation today, and Ms. Arnold and myself are obviously available to answer any questions the committee may have. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to my intern, Ms. Caballero.
Good morning, and my name is Megan Cavallaro for the record. That's MEGANCAVALLARO. And I'm very excited to present this bill, and I thank you for the opportunity. So I will walk you through the purpose of the bill and then each section of the bill. The demand for psychological services has never been higher, and more effort has been put into protecting and regulating mental health services than ever before. An area of psychology that has a profound impact on the field is psychological testing, where assessment and diagnosis takes place. Licensing, oversight, and ethical standards are essential to psychological testing to ensure that practitioners are qualified, competent, and held accountable. Currently, there are laws governing who can perform these tests. Unlicensed individuals may perform certain psychological testing under the direct supervision and periodic observation of a licensed psychologist. These individuals are typically students at the professional level who are training to obtain their license. AB 196 proposes to allow these unlicensed administrators to use the title psychometrist, which is currently prohibited under NAC 641-168, and expanding the terminology of those who already administer these psychological tests to include psychometrists, as AB 196 proposes, would better align with how the term is used nationwide and address issues created by Nevada's narrow definition of psychometrist. And definitionally, psychometrist means a medical professional who is trained in administering and scoring psychological tests. These psychometrists can administer certain tests and can interpret and refer the test results to their supervisor, who then makes the diagnosis and any requisite treatment plan or referral. To be clear, this bill does not require anyone to use the term psychometrist, but simply allows qualified individuals the ability to do so, aligning Nevada with how the term is applied nationwide and giving trained and competent individuals a measure of formal authority. This bill gives power to the Board of Psychology to create regulations governing the requirements for who can be called a psychometrist. This will prevent unqualified individuals from using the term and limit the spread of misinformation. Another aspect of this bill is to ensure a limitation period for when a complaint can be filed with the board against a psychologist. Currently, there is no limitation period on when complaints can be filed after the event giving rise to the complaint occurred. And introducing such a limitation will align Nevada with other jurisdictions and ensure all cases can be evaluated promptly, fairly, and with current evidence. Finally, this bill repeals NRS 641-2265 in order to maintain efficiency and clear up confusion. The board has chosen not to register business entities, corporations, or partnerships, as there are other state agencies that register these business entities already, and making the task redundant and unnecessary for the board to perform. And I will now walk you through the sections of the bill. Subsection 1 of Section 1 allows the board to adopt regulations authorizing licensed psychologists to allow an unlicensed person to perform certain psychological tests under direct supervision. Subsection 2 of Section 1 exempts the term psychometrist from the prohibitions in NRS 641-4404, which will allow those who can perform the psychology tests as described in Subsection 1 to use the term psychometrist in connection with the administration of those tests. Subsection 1 of Section 2 merely makes conforming changes. Subsection 2 of Section 2 establishes a limitation period on when complaints can be filed against a psychologist to 3 years from when the event giving rise to the complaint occurred. In the repeal section of this bill, repeal NRS 641-2265, which require businesses to register with the Board of Psychology. And in closing, I would like to thank Chair Pazina and the members of this committee for hearing this bill. I ask for your support of Assembly Bill 196. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Arnold, should she have anything to add.
Good morning, Chair Pazina and committee members. For the record, my name is Laura Arnold, A-R-N-O-L-D. I'm the Executive Director for the Nevada Board of Psychological Examiners. I do not have anything to add to the wonderful bill presentation, but I'm happy to help answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you, Ms. Arnold and Ms. Cavallero. Beautiful job on the presentation. And again, Assembly Member, it's always good to see you. Do we have any questions on Assembly Bill 196? Senator Daley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one technical question. I was just looking at the authority of the board to adopt regulations. And so is this a new area or a new term that you felt you didn't have authority to regulate before? And it says you may do it. Are you planning on doing it? Adopting regulations to do this? Hopefully, yes. Otherwise, it's a futile exercise. But
thank you for that question. Laura Arnold, for the record, through Chair Pazina to Senator Daley. This issue was brought to us by a licensee who does psychological testing. And it was echoed by a few of them. And the issue was that NRS 641.440 subsection 4 limits the use of the term psychometrist to psychologists only. However, nationwide, those who are identified in NAC 641.168 subsection 1C, those that perform psychological testing with psychometric training, they are referred to as psychometrists nationwide. So Nevada is the only one that restricts them from being able to use that term. What this is intended to do is just provide a narrow exception to the definition that exists for psychometrists, to extend it to those identified in NAC 641.168 1C, in addition to psychologists. I hope that answers your question.
it does, and thank you. I just, because I was looking at the authority you have now to adopt regulations, and it says you can adopt any other regulation not inconsistent with existing law. So if you already had a narrow definition, this is the only time you can do the term, it would, to me, would have been a violation. So this is needed. I'm still just, did you answer the question on may versus are you going to do it?
Thank you for that. The intention is that those who are identified in NAC.168 subsection 1C may use that term if they want to, as other people do across the country. They're not required to use it if they don't.
All right. Not seeing any further questions. I think we may be exhausted from a long morning. We thank you so much for being here, and we'll have you take a step back from the table so that we can welcome testimony in support of AB 96. Excuse me, 196.
Good morning, Chair Pazina, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Spencer Flanders. I am with Tri-Strategies, and I'm happy to be representing the Nevada Psychological Association in support of Assembly Bill 196. We are facing a mental health care crisis here in the state of Nevada, and it's more important than ever that we provide timely and effective care. Assembly Bill 196 allows licensed psychologists to delegate specific tasks to trained assistants known as psychometrists under the supervision. This makes it possible for more patients to be seen without sacrificing the quality of care. This bill ensures that testing remains accurate, reliable, and gives patients quicker access to necessary services. Allowing assistants to use the title of psychometrist provides clarity in the rule and remains transparency and trust. Additionally, Assembly Bill 196 sets a reasonable timeline for filing complaints, protecting both patients and providers. Assembly Bill 196 increases access to care with high professional standards, and we urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to move to the phone lines for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 196.
If you would like to testify in support of AB 196, please press *9 now. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 196. And not seeing anyone coming forward in our physical locations, we are going to go back to you, broadcast. Is there anyone on the phone lines who'd like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 196?
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 196, please press star 9 now.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Kimberly Fergus, FERGUS. I rise in strong opposition to AB 196. This bill is reckless, shift in mental health oversight, authorizing unlicensed individuals to perform psychological testing under the vague title of psychometrist. We are opening the floodgates to unqualified people influencing the most critical decisions in mental health, including diagnosis tied to gender reassignment, legal competency or medication. Unlicensed equals unaccountable. There is no licensing board to discipline so-called psychometrists who makes a mistake if harm is done. Victims have no direct recourse, no license to suspend, no standards to enforce. A 3-year complaint limit equals institutional cover-up. This bill bars complaints after 3 years, even if the misconduct was hidden or the harm wasn't discovered until later. This is not oversight. This is a free pass to negligence. Psychology is not a training ground. We don't need shortcuts or cost-cutting in mental health. Society's obsession with inclusivity and opinion-based identity is already destabilizing medical ethics. Now you want to introduce unlicensed voices in the mental health system? This is how standards collapse. Do not let Nevada become the testing ground for politicized psychology and unqualified mental health work. Vote no on AB 196. Thank you. Have a good day. Until later. This is not oversight.
Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Well, I think that may have been opposition, but thank you very much. I think we might also have a gentleman down in Las Vegas who'd like to testify as well in opposition, and we will go ahead and cede the floor to him.
CYRUS HOJJATY. I am speaking opposition. I will ditto the previous commentator. Yield.
Thank you so much. And with that, that moves us to neutral on Assembly Bill 196. So anyone who would like to testify in neutral, we'd welcome you forward. Not seeing anyone in our physical locations, broadcast, we are back to you. Is there anyone on the phone lines who'd like to testify in neutral on Assembly Bill 196? And thank you.
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Would the Assembly member as well as Ms. Caballero like to make any closing statements?
Thank you so much, Chair Brazina and members of Commerce and Labor. I was going to waive my closing, but I just heard some comments, and whenever anything is represented and I don't think it's accurate, I want to make sure the committee feels comfortable with some of the representations. Obviously, if a psychometrist is working under a licensed psychologist, the psychologist would be still subject to the Board of Examiners for any disciplinary measures. Likewise with liability. If there was any civil liability that would be exposed for any sort of malpractice that was committed, obviously an action could be brought against the psychologist. And so I want to kind of put that out there. I had not had the opportunity to ever talk to Ms. Fergus about this bill. We didn't have this kind of opposition in the Assembly, and so I wanted to make sure that the record was accurate with respect to this. Moreover, psychometrists are already approved in other states, so this is not something new that we're doing in Nevada. So with that, I thank the committee for your time and always am available for any other questions later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will close the bill hearing on Assembly Bill 196, and we'll move to our last order of business today, which is public comments. Members of the public may provide public comment in person, by phone, or submit written public comment to the committee's email address. Instructions for providing public comment may be found on the agenda, including the call-in information. We very much look forward to hearing your comments, and we ask that you keep them brief and please avoid repetition of comments made by previous speakers. Due to time constraints, we may have to move on to the next person who wants to provide public comment. And in such a case, please send in your public comment in writing to the committee's email address. Finally, we ask that you clearly state and spell your name for the record, but as pointed out by one of our speakers earlier, if anyone would like to remain anonymous, that is okay as well. We'll begin with public comment from those in the physical locations, and then we'll move to anyone who has called in. So beginning in Carson City, I don't see anyone, but I do see someone in Las Vegas. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I like to say I really enjoyed this meeting. I went to 2 meetings back to back. I really appreciate your efforts, Senator Pezzina. Since this is the Labor Committee, I want to talk about an issue called the minimum wage. The last time this was addressed was in the 2019 legislative session. I understand that raising the minimum wage has its issues. There's downsides. It increases costs. Not to mention it doesn't address fully our problems, which is cost of living and income inequality. However, there are many benefits to raising the minimum wage. One of the obvious factors is it allows extra dollars to be put in the pockets, especially working class. Currently, Nevada minimum wage, correct me if I'm wrong, is $11.50 with insurance and $12.50 with insurance. But I think this number, depending on how you look at it, it's too low. I was looking for jobs. There's a rental car business that goes about cleaning vehicles, and they were offering that wage. It's pathetically low, and they make so much money. They deserve to pay their employers better. Under current policy, it's currently flat, and who knows when there's going to be a bill addressing this issue. However, I have an idea in mind. If you look at the states of Washington and Oregon, they peg their minimum wage to the Consumer Price Index. It adjusts every single year. So under my plan, let's say in 2026, we would adjust for CPI or any rate of inflation. Probably it's going to be like $13.20, and it would adjust year after year. However, make no mistake, I do believe this minimum wage should be flexible, not just with insurance, but also when it comes to large employers. Now, if you're tipped, we have a lot of tipped employees, including myself, it should be at a lower rate, let's say $13 something. But if you're a large employer, especially these companies like Walmart, where many of their employees have to depend on benefits to survive, which is so pathetic, it should be $3 higher than businesses with fewer than, 25
Mr.
employees or
Hajati, we're actually over 2 minutes, but we'd like to hear if you'd like to wrap up your comments for us. And we thank you so
10
much for being
seconds.
here. Of course.
10 seconds. Please, if you can, in the 2027 legislative session, introduce a bill. We would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And this affects all workers from all over, up to $25 an hour. Food for thought. Great pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here today. And not seeing anyone else in our physical locations, we're going to move to our phones broadcast. Do we have anyone who would like to make public comment? And as Mr. Hajati said, that does absolutely relate to labor, who would like to make any comment relating to commerce and labor, but not on the bills that we've heard so far today. Thank you.
Chair, your public line is open and working. You have no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, we will look forward to seeing everyone back here Friday morning at 8 a.m. and we are adjourned.